Beloved child, something changed today that no one expected. A message has finally reached you, and it did not arrive by accident. There has been silence for so long that you almost believed nothing would ever change. But the moment this message found its way to you, the direction of someone else's heart began to change forever. Listen carefully, because every word you hear today has been waiting for the perfect moment to find you. Do not rush through these words. Someone who has carried your memory through endless days and sleepless nights has finally gathered the courage to let the truth be known. This is not an ordinary message. It carries emotions that have been locked away, fears that were never spoken aloud, and a confession that could change everything you thought you understood. Don't skip, because what happens next will surprise even those who believed your story had already reached its end. For a long time, the person you love convinced themselves that silence was the safest choice. They watched opportunities disappear while pretending they were strong enough to let you go. Every smile they showed the world hid another broken promise they had made to their own heart. Every celebration they attended felt empty because your absence echoed louder than every voice around them. They tried to erase your memory by keeping themselves busy, by listening to the opinions of others, and by believing that time would eventually make them forget. But time never erased your place. Instead, it made your value impossible to ignore. Then something unexpected happened today. A conversation they never planned to have suddenly forced them to face the truth. One simple question made every hidden emotion rise to the surface. They could no longer pretend they were happy without you. In that very moment, they reached for their phone with trembling hands, knowing there was only one person they truly wanted to speak to. You. Don't skip. The message they finally sent was not filled with perfect words or carefully written promises. It was raw, emotional, and impossible to fake. They admitted that every attempt to move on had only made them realize how deeply your presence had become a part of their life. They confessed that they had replayed countless memories in their mind, wondering what would have happened if they had chosen courage instead of fear. There were nights when they stared at old conversations, hoping to find a sign that you still cared. There were mornings when they woke up expecting to forget you, only to discover that your memory had become even stronger. Every road they traveled seemed to remind them of a place connected to you. Every familiar song brought back emotions they had tried so hard to bury. The truth became impossible to escape. They were never running away from you. They were running away from their own heart. Don't skip. Because the next few moments uncovered a truth that no one saw coming. But before they could press the final send button, something happened that completely changed everything. Someone unexpectedly entered the room carrying information they never imagined would surface. It was a truth that had been hidden for far too long. A secret conversation, carefully kept away from both of you, was suddenly exposed. They discovered that many of the misunderstandings which separated your paths had never happened naturally at all. Certain words had been twisted. Important messages had been kept from reaching you. Decisions had been influenced by people who believed they knew what was best, without caring how much pain they were creating. Don't skip. The most shocking revelation had not even arrived yet. In that unbelievable moment, everything they had believed about your silence began to fall apart. They realized you may never have abandoned them the way they once thought. Their hands began to shake as guilt overwhelmed every emotion they had been holding back. Every missed opportunity suddenly made sense. Every unanswered question finally had an explanation. Tears filled their eyes as they whispered your name, wishing they could turn back time and undo every mistake. They knew they could never erase the past, but they also knew they could no longer remain silent. The urgent message you received today was only the beginning. What they uncovered next revealed the identity of the one person who had secretly stood between both of you from the very beginning. And that revelation was about to shock everyone. The truth they uncovered was far more painful than they could have imagined. The person standing between both of you had never expected their secret to be discovered. For years, they had quietly shaped the story from the shadows, changing small details that eventually created a mountain of misunderstanding. They deleted messages before they could be read. They twisted simple conversations into painful arguments. They convinced people around them that distance was the safest choice. Little by little, they built a wall that neither you nor the person you love realized was being created. Every unanswered call, every delayed reply, every missed opportunity carried fingerprints that had remained invisible until today. Suddenly, every confusing moment from the past began to fit together like pieces of a forgotten puzzle. Don't skip. Because what happened in the next few minutes left everyone speechless. As they continued searching for answers, they found something hidden inside an old folder that had not been opened for years. At first, it looked completely ordinary. But inside was a handwritten note dated from the exact week your lives unexpectedly changed forever. The handwriting was familiar. The words were impossible to ignore. It revealed that someone had intentionally encouraged fear, doubt, and separation, believing that keeping the two of you apart would protect their own interests. Reading those words felt like watching years of heartbreak unfold all over again. Every sentence brought another painful realization. The love that had once seemed impossible had never disappeared. It had simply been buried beneath lies that grew stronger every day. Don't skip. The next discovery changed everything they believed about your future. Unable to carry the weight of the truth any longer, they made a decision they had been avoiding for far too long. They refused to let another day pass in silence. With tears filling their eyes, they gathered every message, every forgotten memory, and every piece of evidence they had uncovered. They knew apologies alone would never heal the past, but they also knew that honesty was the only path left. As they prepared to come forward, another unexpected notification appeared on their phone. The sender's name froze them in place. It was the very person responsible for keeping both of you apart. And the message contained one shocking sentence that neither of you was prepared to read. What those words revealed would change the rest of this story forever. The notification remained on the screen, but for several long moments they could not bring themselves to open it. Their heart was racing, their hands were trembling, and every instinct told them that whatever was written inside would change everything forever. Finally, they took a deep breath and tapped the message. The first sentence made them freeze where they stood. It read, "I can't hide the truth anymore. You deserve to know what really happened." In that instant, years of unanswered questions came rushing back. Every painful goodbye, every misunderstanding, every moment of silence suddenly felt connected to a single hidden story that had remained buried for far too long. Don't skip. Because the next confession exposed the biggest secret anyone had ever kept from both of you. The message continued with a confession no one expected. The person admitted they had deliberately created distance between you and the one you love. They had spread false stories, hidden important conversations, and convinced everyone that your relationship had no future. At first, they believed they were doing the right thing. They thought time would erase every feeling and that both of you would eventually move on. But instead, they watched two hearts continue suffering in silence while pretending everything was normal. The guilt became impossible to carry. Every family gathering, every celebration, every wedding they attended reminded them of the happiness they had stolen. They confessed they had spent countless sleepless nights wishing they had told the truth much sooner. Now they could no longer live with the weight of their own decisions. Don't skip. The most emotional moment of this story was still waiting. Without wasting another second, the person you love gathered every message, every piece of evidence, and every written confession. They knew this truth could no longer remain hidden. They made one final promise to themselves: no more fear, no more silence, and no more allowing others to decide the future of two people who still cared deeply for each other. With determination replacing doubt, they started making their way toward the one place where they hoped they could finally see you again. They had no idea whether you would forgive them. They did not know if your heart was still open or already closed forever. But they believed that the truth deserved one final chance. As they came closer, they saw someone standing in the distance holding an envelope with your name written across the front. What was inside that envelope would reveal the final piece of the story. And it would leave everyone completely speechless. The envelope felt unusually heavy as they slowly reached for it. It was sealed, untouched, and your name was written across the front in handwriting they recognized immediately. Their heartbeat grew louder with every passing second. For a moment, they wondered if opening it would only bring more pain. But deep inside, they knew they had already come too far to turn back. As the seal was carefully broken, several folded pages slipped into their hands. The very first line stopped them cold. It read, "If this letter has finally reached you, then the truth could no longer stay hidden." Every word that followed carried years of silence, regret, and emotions that had never been spoken aloud. Don't skip. Because the next page revealed something that no one believed still existed. Inside the envelope were copies of old letters, forgotten messages, and one photograph that had been hidden away for years. Those letters proved that the person you love had never stopped searching for you. Again and again they had written messages filled with hope, apologies, and promises, but none of them had ever reached your hands. Someone had intercepted them before they could be delivered. Every attempt to reconnect had been quietly destroyed before either of you even knew it existed. Suddenly, the years of silence no longer looked like rejection. They looked like a carefully planned separation built on secrets and deception. The truth was finally standing in the light, impossible for anyone to deny. Don't skip. Because the final decision was about to be made. With tears falling onto the pages, the person you love realized there was only one thing left to do. They could no longer allow fear, pride, or the mistakes of others to control the future. They carefully placed every letter back into the envelope, holding it close as though they were protecting the last piece of hope they had left. Then they looked toward the road ahead and whispered your name one more time. At that exact moment, another unexpected message appeared on their phone. It wasn't from the person who had confessed. It wasn't from anyone in the family. It was from you. The notification contained only 7 simple words, but those 7 words had the power to change both of your lives forever. The moment they opened your message, nothing would ever be the same again. And the ending of this story was finally about to be revealed. The moment they opened your message, time seemed to stand completely still. The world around them faded into silence as they read the 7 words that had been waiting for this very moment. I've been waiting for the truth to find us. Those words broke every wall that fear, distance, and deception had built over the years. Tears filled their eyes because, for the first time in a very long time, they realized that hope had never truly disappeared. It had simply been buried beneath misunderstandings that neither of you had created. Don't skip. Because this final truth carries the lesson your heart needed to hear. Without wasting another second, they hurried to meet you. There were no dramatic speeches waiting, no perfect explanations, and no attempt to erase the past with empty promises. Instead, there was honesty. They admitted every mistake they had made, every moment they allowed fear to control them, and every day they wished they had fought harder for the truth. They apologized for believing lies instead of believing in the connection you once shared. They accepted that trust is not rebuilt with words alone, but with consistent actions. You listened quietly. The pain of the past could not disappear overnight, but neither could the love that had survived every obstacle placed in its path. Together, you both understood that the greatest enemy had never been each other. It had been silence, assumptions, and the people who benefited from keeping 2 hearts apart. Don't skip. This is the most important part of the entire story. Some stories end with goodbye. This one ended with the courage to finally face the truth. The hidden letters were no longer hidden. The unanswered messages had finally been read. The painful secrets had lost their power. The person who caused the separation was forced to live with the consequences of their choices, while both of you were finally free to decide your own future without fear or manipulation. If this story touched your heart, remember this simple truth: never let silence become stronger than honest communication. Misunderstandings can separate people for years, but truth has a way of finding the light when the time is right. Sometimes the message you've been waiting for doesn't just change a single day, it changes the direction of an entire life. And that urgent message, the one that arrived when everything seemed lost, wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of a brand new chapter.